You have queued up the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation recorded at the New York City Concert Hall, Roulette. You can hear thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's past and present and find news of upcoming events celebrating innovation and imagination at roulette.org. Aren't you curious?
In this edition of the Roulette Tapes, the music of Blue Jean Tyranny, pianist, composer, and cultural explorer, heard here in concerts presented by Roulette between 2004 and 2010, including archival commentary by the artist and an introduction by writer-producer Mary Griffin. Here is Blue Jean Tyranny.
I'm Mary Griffin, and I am a writer and a producer of artists' work over the years. I first met Blue Jean at the Kitchen, where I was director from 1978 to, I think, 1984, when it was in Soho on Worcester and Broome Street, as somebody described it as a major concert hall on a major truck route. Anyway, Blue Jean, at that time, the first time I met him, I didn't know him very well at all, and he was living in San Francisco, where I think he was still at Mills College at the, whatever that place was called, the computer lab that Bob Ashley and David Behrman were involved with. And he was working there. But he came to New York to perform with Bob Ashley, at the first Kitchen benefit we did. And Bob decided to do Wolfman, which is one of the most, what could one say? It kind of clears the audience out of the hall. That's what it does. Anyway, that's the first time I met Blue Jean. And gradually, I came to know him a little better because he moved to New York, as did many of those people. I always said I had a magnet in the back room at the Kitchen that drew people from the West Coast back to New York in many cases. Pauline Oliveros and Bob and David and various other people came to New York in like 79, 80, I guess 78. Blue Jean was one of them. And he performed various times at the Kitchen, his own work. And then he also performed we did New Music New York in the June of 1979. And it was this kind of like 9-day festival of new music. Blue Jean did a piece there, I think it was the White Night Riots, about Harvey Milk. at about the same time, he became involved with Perfect Lives, which was Bob Ashley's big undertaking to write opera for television. If you know Blue Jean's music, there are many sections of Perfect Lives that sound very much like Blue Jean's own compositions. Bob always felt that this was a team that was producing this work, that, everybody contributed, the video artist John Sanborn, the performers, Jill Crozen and David Van Teegum. Peter Gordon was like the production producer, the sound producer. Carla was the producer for the kitchen. He felt that they were really a team, and that everybody was part of the creation of this piece, and that was true. But Blue Jean, I think, was kind of essential to the composition, to the music. I mean, he played Buddy, who is like this phenomenal piano player, which indeed Blue Jean was a phenomenal piano player. Nobody could play the piano like him. I remember Kyle Gann in the Village Voice wrote a review once and said, God plays the piano through this man. And Blue Jean was, oh my goodness, was he knowledgeable about music, about the history of music, about the theory, about the mechanics, about, he knew everything, and brought that kind of intellectual thoroughness to his work, even though, the product was like something that was like transcendental. It was based in this highly informed, wide knowledge of music. And what I should say is, if you've got a recording of Blue Jean talking, you got to hear him giggle. He had the most infectious laugh. He had a great sense of humor. He was a great party guy. Carla told me that when they were on tour, he would disappear after the performance. They'd go off for a drink somewhere, and he'd be gone because he went dancing. And he was one of the great dancers of all time. I swear to God, he was amazing. There was after a performance at the Kitchen or somewhere, and we went to a club in the East Village. There was dancing, and there were a lot of people there, and Blue Jean was dancing. And Twyla Tharp was there, and she kind of wouldn't let him sit down all night. It's like he was just extraordinary. So he was a lot of fun, in spite of the fact that he was intellectually intimidating.
The last piece is from a work called The Invention of Memory. I was reading, I don't remember his first name, Schachter, a book called The Seven Sins of Memory. In the book, he explains many ways in which people speak of the experience of memory, the many kinds of memory that there are. And as I was reading it, I thought, oh my God, that's like a musical form. These are directly correlative with musical forms, or one can make a good case for the parallel. And for instance, cryptomnesia, secret amnesia, where you forget the source of where you got information. This happens to everyone. If somebody tells you something one day and then the next day you come up with this great idea, and it's exactly the same thing the guy told you, but you have forgotten the source. And that to me was parallel with imitation, but inexact imitation, because the idea is not quite the same, and it's filtered through your consciousness. And there are many other parallels. And so the work was written just to explore that idea of whether there was some, I suppose, dynamic system or something physiological perhaps that could be explored. It could also be a source of revelation, which it often is. first piece is called A Letter from Home, and I often begin concerts with this. It's sort of developing piece over the years. It started in the early 70s, and every time I play it, of course, the nature of our music, the new music, is that every performance is very different, of course. This one, it's structure for the musicians. It's just one pattern, and then it propagates outwards on different harmonics, and it's like a tree. It's like a tree with lots and lots of branches developing. And the idea of the letter from home, it's kind of like people will say, if you read these like cosmological books of something like, the antediluvian
disaster happened, and then somehow this civilization grew up afterward, and how did they know all these things, It seems like it came from nowhere, and then another antediluvian disaster happens a couple of 20,000 years later. And so the problem is, how do they transmit the knowledge, And some people I'm reading a book recently where the fellow says that myths are the way that scientific knowledge is actually propagated, and at some point people figure out the myths and figure out the kinetic properties and the physical properties that are going on. And so so this piece and a larger work I'm working on called The Driver's Son is concerned with the subject of the transmission of knowledge, and how that might happen and what that would mean, actually, what we consider knowledge. Otherwise, it's a piece of music.
the music of pianist and composer Blue Jean Tyranny, in concerts presented by Roulette and preserved as part of Roulette's Concert Archive project. This program is made possible in part with support from the Destina Foundation, the Grammy Museum, Roulette supporters, and, once upon a time, the National Endowment for the Arts. Special thanks to Mary Griffin for her reflections. This is David Weinstein at the desk. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation. This series is produced by Roulette Intermedium. You can find thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's archives and news of upcoming events at roulette.org.